Hi, welcome to Chat, Communications, Happenings, and Trends. So, this is not a pleasant story. I'm just going to jump into this, and hopefully by the time that we finish the story, it'll become a little bit more palatable for you to process. I'm sure a lot of people already know this by now, but there was a shooting at a local Waffle House in Nashville, Tennessee, perpetuated by a white man with an AR-15. Now, one thing that I think we've been focusing a lot on this program has been kind of media, and the way that the media portrays certain events or portrays certain people. That being the case, I found a particular article quite disturbing just because this media outlet, which is the Chicago Tribune, went out of their way to, I guess, get to know this monstrous human being, and I understand that humans come in all capacities for evil and good, and part of this, I guess, homicidal rage that people have sometimes, especially this individual, that's part of the human condition, and I am not negating that whatsoever, but I do not want to humanize him either. That being the case, this article did seem to go out of the way to help, I guess, cast a better light on this monster, and I will not be telling you his name. You're more than welcome to find that on your own, but his name does not get the honor of coming out of my mouth because he is a horrific human being. That being said, they went to the town of Morton, which is where this individual lived, that happened to kill 4 people over the weekend, and he also injured 4 additional folks there. And they interviewed the neighbors. What a quiet, lovely human being he was. Things along those lines. Things that you tend to hear for white men who perpetuate or who do these crimes. Again, he left 4 human beings dead, all of whom happened to be in their late teens and early 20s, so they had a full life ahead of them, yet he slaughtered them. And it took 34 hours to find this individual who, again, slaughtered 4 people. And he also had an AR-15 at his disposal, as well as ammunition when he was located. Now, one thing that this article in the Chicago Tribune did highlight was that this individual did have his FOID card revoked after he attempted to, I guess, break into the White House. So clearly he should not have been in possession of a firearm. The firearms were taken, or were, I guess, grabbed by his father, who subsequently gave the firearms back to him when he wanted to move from Illinois, which is where he was from, to Tennessee. And of course, because of this father's neglectful behavior, he has subsequently terrorized a neighborhood that I am very familiar with, because that is where I used to live in Nashville. So this is just a tragic case here. The fact that we don't seem to have any type of control as far as who gets these firearms when they need to be revoked, reasonably so. Apparently they needed to be grabbed from him a total of 3 times, yet his father again continued to give him his firearms back, because what good dad wouldn't do that, right? And now 4 people are dead. Not to mention the society in which we surround ourselves in this hothead gun culture. Now, one thing that this article did mention was that the Illinois State Assembly is attempting to, I guess, kind of rectify the situation a little bit, as far as trying to, I guess, get law enforcement agencies to be more accountable for the weapons if someone's FOID card needs to be revoked. But one thing that they did mention was some of the difficulties that they would face, because, of course, there are many firearms floating about that aren't registered. And so if you don't have a registered firearm, the police enforcement agencies or law enforcement agencies are not capable of getting said firearm. Another thing that they mention is that 2.1 million FOID cards have been issued in the state of Illinois, and out of that, only about 11,000 people have had their cards revoked in 2016. So your numbers this sounds like a daunting task when that many people have had their FOID card revoked. But let's look at the percentages. That's only 5.1% of individuals that have had their card revoked. So if we look at the pure numbers versus the pure percentages, that does not seem out of the realm's possibility to be able to at least accommodate in some way, shape, or fashion. But one thing, again, that just kept disturbing me about this particular piece, it had some good information, but it was very skewed, and you can read it as such. Hopefully I'll have the article linked below for you. But it just kept mentioning how this individual, this monstrous human being, was just such a friendly guy. Who could have predicted this? I don't know. The 3 times he had his fucking guns taken away from him would have been a good indication that he probably shouldn't fucking have guns. That's just my perspective of it. I would want to be a reasonable human being and recognize that people that probably are said to have their guns revoked should definitely have their guns revoked from them. And in no way, shape, or form should a family member or friend be responsible for taking said firearms away. Now, I do also recognize, I'm a reasonable human being, I recognize that there's a problem here, because what I would imagine seeing is something like this. Say that you have a white person and who has their FOID card revoked. And same thing. Say there's a black person who has their FOID card revoked. Who do you think police are going to go and actively look for their guns and take away and put those guns into their possession? Arguably so, and there's probably data to prove this. It would be a black person. And so you'd have, again, a stripping of weapons from the black community from, I guess, at one point they were legally allowed to carry, and then a maintenance of guns within the white community for, even though they were supposed to have their guns taken away from them. So I recognize that there is that issue. Now, one thing that also just got to me is this last quote in this particular piece. It was a woman that lived in the same neighborhood as this monstrous individual that, again, murdered 4 people, injured 4 more. She stated, "They are a really..." Oh, let me do my Tennessee accent. She stated, "They are a really good family. This is really traumatic, shocking thing that happened to them and our town." You know what? Here's the thing. 4 people are dead. I don't give a shit about what shocking incident took place in your city or your town and to that family. I'm sure it matters to you, but it doesn't matter to me. In the grand scheme of things, 4 people are dead. Those are lives, they're gone. They're not coming back, people. 4 people, just because you're able to dehumanize them doesn't mean that we should all feel sorry for your little town because somebody in your little town is a monster. All right. So something else that was particularly infuriating about this story was that earlier today, or I guess yesterday, throughout the weekend, whatever, a judge in Nashville issued a $2 million bond for this monstrous human being, again, who slaughtered 4 people with his AR-15 and also injured 4 additional folks. So that should be outrageous for anybody, because if we drew parallels to a recent shooting that happened in September from a alleged shooter at an Antioch church, which is very close to the Antioch Waffle House in which this took place, Emmanuel Sampson. Now, he was, I guess, taken without, or he did not get a bond issued to him for any type of release. Now, in Tennessee, the bond was quite high. It was $2 million, but you only need to make 2% of that to be able to be released. Now, since the time of this reporting, one thing that did happen was that the Nashville judge, Michael Mondelli, on Tuesday morning issued an order revoking the $2 million bond for this monster. And again, he is accused of having slaughtered 4 people. The, acting mayor, David Briley, went onto his Twitter account to basically make a statement, basically saying that the the order for revoke of this bond, he stated, Judge Mondelli has issued an order revoking the bond of murder suspect, this monster's name of which I will not be pronouncing. Now, one thing I do want to highlight are the people that are arguably most impacted here. So, 4 of them, again, are dead, and I'm going to go and give you their names right now, and hopefully I will be able to find some images for you. Again, they're very young individuals, have their whole lives ahead of them, and it's really just a tragedy here. So, we're going to start with the first victim, Tareen Sanderlin, who was 29 and lived in Goodlettsville, Tennessee. They were an employee at the local Waffle House, and he was fatally wounded while standing outside of the restaurant. There is also 20-year-old Joe Perez. He was a patron there, and he was fatally shot while, again, standing outside of the Waffle House. There is Aquila De Silva, 23, of Antioch. She was wounded at the restaurant, and she ended up dying in the hospital at Vanderbilt University Medical Center. And finally, Dabney Groves, 21, of Gallatin, Tennessee. These are all human lives that are not coming back because of A, B, C, and D fell apart in our society. One, there was no checks and balances to assure that this human being, this monster, had his firearms reasonably taken away from him. It was clear based off of, again, 3 incidences, and I encourage you to actually read that article. It was hard to get through because of how glamorous they were trying to make his life out to be, but it does have some important key information in there as far as like why he had his guns taken away from him, why his father was supposed to take them away from him, and I guess the failing of the system here, because if you're a white dude, you're allowed to own firearms, but if you're black, fuck no. It's infuriating. This is an infuriating story, but I do encourage you to look into this a little bit more. Anyways, these are lives that are not coming back. And I just want to highlight it's so tragic. It's so tragic. They don't get a second chance. They don't get to fight for anything or fight for nothing or just be, they don't get. I was stupid when I was 20, and I couldn't imagine not being here today to have these life experiences and to learn who I am as a human being more and more as I age. And that's part of the beauty about being a part of this world. They don't get to experience that beauty. They're gone because of this individual who took their lives. And it's heartbreaking. So, that being all said, I'm sure everybody has heard about this man that was also in the Waffle House, and he was shot at. His name is James Shaw Jr. And what he did was, first of all, let's take out this narrative. What you hear from the NRA a lot of the time is the only thing that can stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. So let me just erase that narrative because it creates a false dichotomy in and of itself. And I'm going to tell you why. Because it's under the assumption that those people that lost their lives or were shot at and unable to defend themselves in any capacity were not good people. That is a lie. You don't know what the situation is going to be like. Have you ever been shot at? A lot of people haven't. It's going to probably happen because we live in the United States where nothing about gun control ever fucking happens. So you may experience that, and then you can come back and tell me exactly how it felt for you. But this man had nothing. He was completely unarmed and everything like that. And James, he tackled the gunman, and he got the AR-15 away from this deranged individual and threw it over the counter. And arguably more lives were saved because of this. And so not only did he fight for his life, but he had absolutely nothing to defend himself with. So, according to the NRA, did this even happen? I don't know. I've always been told that, the only thing that could stop a bad guy is a good guy with a gun. So I don't know how a good guy with fisticuffs could possibly do that. So let's just erase that narrative. This guy, he's a trip, but he has a 4-year-old daughter. And so there has been a GoFundMe set up, and I will link that below for you, for his 4-year-old, because they want to raise money for tuition for her, which I think is phenomenal. I really wish that we lived in a system where tuition was paid for everybody, but if there's anyone that it would be deserving of such a treat, would be this man who put his life on the line to save not only himself but also the others within that restaurant. And now he basically said, you know what, I was just defending myself. I don't consider myself a hero. Well, most heroes don't, and arguably, even if it's for selfish reasons, it doesn't matter. This was the consequence of your actions. You took, you risked your own life and limb for others, and not only yourself. And he should definitely, James Shaw Jr. should definitely be commended for his bravery, because I can't tell you that I would have done the same. He also established a GoFundMe for the victims in this shooting, and I'm going to read their names again just for you towards the end of this segment. So I think that's remarkable that he has a big heart, and it's great to see these things. It's great to see a community after a tragedy happens kind of bond together, and be able to tell these things, because there's just so much tragedy in the world. And I just wanted to highlight James here because, just what a remarkable human being. And the fact that he is going out of his way to help raise money for these families that no longer have their children or their, uncles and aunts or whomever they were to these family members. They're gone permanently, and everybody should be helped here. So James has raised more than $97,000 with the goal of only $15,000. And this, again, he plans on having all of these funds go to these victims' families. And again, I'm going to read out their names. Again, Tareen Sanderlin, Joe Perez, Aquila De Silva, and Debony Groves. So these are the 4 victims that tragically lost their lives here in this attack. And I just want to say that there are good people in this world, and we just shouldn't forget that, because it's so easy to forget. It's so easy to forget our own mortality as well, and just try to do as best as you can while you're here. And if you want to make it your mission to assure that these senseless acts of violence never take place again, I wholeheartedly would love you for that. And I just don't know what to say. I'm heartbroken by this, but at the same time, I'm encouraged by the strength of humanity at the same time. And I'm hoping that if there's anything you take away from this, is that good people do exist in spite of all of the darkness. So that's where I'm going to end today, and I hope to see you back tomorrow. Bye.